about pancreatic cancer and the monies that are needed to find the cure. And of course, the third goal tonight is to support the Griffiths, Kathy and Greg and Jamie and Jordan and your extended family. This is important, and as the doctor mentioned, Greg is a giant. This community has come together to support him because we love him, because he's one of the great guys. He truly is. Tough for me to say that, Greg. But don't worry, I'm just getting warmed up. No, he truly is one of the great guys, and it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here tonight to support this great team, family, friends, doctors, doing what they're doing in support of Greg, in support of raising the money for pancreatic cancer. But now that I have the microphone, I just want to talk about just a couple of things that I'm doing and have done, great experiences for me in this team effort for Greg and my family's done over the past months. First and foremost is I wear this prayer bracelet that Kathy gave me, and it's really powerful. As first of all, it reminds me every day that I've got to remember Greg in my prayers. But I can't tell you how many members of Congress and people in government ask me about this bracelet, and I tell them. And there's probably about 36 members of Congress that are keeping Greg in their prayers every day just because they asked me about the bracelet. I told them I had a friend that had it. So there are people all over this country that are praying for Greg and thinking about Greg, and it's all because of this simple prayer bracelet and the power of it. So that's one thing that I've done and very proud to take part in. My family went to Italy this summer, and one of our main missions was to make sure we were in every church we could go, big and small, in Italy to say a prayer for Greg. I know that I didn't make it to Venice, but Becky and Garrett were in Venice, and I don't know what churches they were in, but they were crisscross Venice, praying in churches. We were in Florence. I spent about 7 hours in Rome. I made it a point to go to the Vatican, so Greg, we registered a prayer there for you. We were in the town of Assisi. You name it, we said a prayer for Greg. So that was part of our mission on our vacation this summer. And finally, I guess I need to explain a little bit about Greg's and my relationship. I've known Greg for just about 20 years, just shy of 20 years. And Greg and I have this close relationship where sometimes I don't see him for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. But it doesn't matter, because when I show up, Greg and I just start like it was last week we saw each other. And Greg, how to describe Greg's and my relationship and sum it up in a word, and Mrs. Griffith, no offense to you, you raised a great son. And I was thinking about how to, so don't be offended when I say this, because I'm thinking about how can I describe Greg and my relationship, and I came up with it. My mother would say Greg's a smart aleck, but I would say he's a smart ass. And he never passes up an opportunity to zing me. He's a guy that makes sure I remember that even though I go off to Washington and serve in Congress, that I'm just a guy from Hollidaysburg. But really, he reminds me I'm just a guy from Everett. And not only am I from Everett, but he's one of the 9 baseball players in the Hollidaysburg Junior High. I'm going to admit this publicly now, Greg. That destroyed my potential career as a pitcher in baseball. It was a terrible day for me. Hollidaysburg came to Everett. They shelled me. It was the last day I ever pitched a baseball game, literally. And it was probably the best day in Greg Griffith's life in baseball because I think he hit his only home run for me. Now, we didn't realize that until 20 or so years later. But it's been a great friendship, a lasting friendship. And when they talked about, and I know many of you in here, I think you said there's 15 people that have driven you out to Pittsburgh to chemo. When they asked me to drive Greg out to chemo, I said, sure, absolutely. Let me look at my schedule. I looked at my schedule and said, hey, the first Thursday in April, I can take Greg out to chemo. And then after I said it, I looked at my calendar. It was April Fool's Day. So it's fitting, Greg and I travel on April Fool's Day. We go to Pittsburgh, and I know I've never seen chemo administered, and I knew it was going to be tough. But this was a day that Greg's veins didn't cooperate. So they must have stuck them 7, 8, 9 times. And if anybody knows me, knows needles and myself, it's not a good thing. But I stood there talking to Greg, and they kept jabbing, and I kept thinking, I'm going to pass out. But, I know, I'm here for Greg. I got to make sure. So I survived. We finished the chemo up. It was probably one of the longer days you had in chemo. But then we come 2 hours from Pittsburgh to Altoona. It took us 3 hours. And a guy who serves in Congress on the Transportation Committee, not only was Greg riding me on the way home, even tonight he told me that, I got to do something about getting 22 fixed up so that he doesn't. So April Fool's Day 2010 is going to be one of the most memorable days of my life. Not because I was watching the needles and they caused me anxiety. Not because of the long ride home, but because I got to spend time and lend some effort to my good friend, my dear friend, taking him out to chemo and be part of this effort, this team effort to make sure that Greg wins this battle. I'm confident that he's going to win this battle. It's going to take all of us, not only here tonight, but as we move forward to help these good doctors raise awareness, raise money, and most of all, who are here tonight to demonstrate our love and our support for Greg and their family. So, again, it's an honor for me to be here. Thank you very much. We're going to beat this, Greg.
We've all come together in a couple of great causes. When this thing was first put together, the idea was to have a roast. But unfortunately, there were so many people that wanted to speak, we could not get any place big enough to get together to do a roast for Greg. So this came up with this format, which has worked out wonderfully well. And again, I cannot express enough how much everybody is appreciative of not only the financial generosity, but folks showing up for the event and everything that people have done for the Griffiths and everyone involved over the past several months. It's been a great outpouring of things. And it is great to have the opportunity to introduce Greg, to come up here and say a few words to all of us. He's been looking forward to this. Greg and I have worked together over the years for a long time, and we were talking about this, saying that in many instances you get up and you just wing it. But this is one of those nights where he wanted to write down a few things to talk about for all of us, and now after sitting through a wonderful meal and some great opportunities to help us raise money, we get to listen to the man of the hour, Greg Griffith.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm kind of embarrassed standing up here because the question in my mind is, who is that man on that billboard? How about that hair and that dark mustache? Matter of fact, my niece Samantha came up to me. She's going to second grade, I think, isn't she? And she said, "Uncle Greg, were you born with a mustache?" And anybody that went to high school with me probably appreciates that. When Brent originally called me about tonight's event and tomorrow's 3-on-3 tournament, I was really touched by it, obviously. And really tonight, I have to say, I'm very humbled standing here because not every pancreatic cancer patient gets the gift of time that I've been given. And so before I get started, I just want to thank a couple of people. And would everybody that was on the committee for tonight's event and tomorrow's 3-on-3 tournament just stand up for a second? Please just stand up for a second, because I just want to thank them.